Thanks, Dan, for joining us this morning. You can go ahead and stop sharing your screen and come off mute and talk to us for a second. So today you're going to talk to us about the interactive forms in Automation Anywhere and show us a long demo of building an interactive form and interacting with an interactive form. Can you give us a little bit about yourself and how you're holding up in quarantine first?
Yeah, that was a lot of interacting there. Yeah, my name is Dan Seager. I work for BP3 in the UK, kind of primarily responsible for tech sales, but have a long and illustrious career in process, BPM, RPA, all those kind of nice things. And more recently with RPA and specifically Automation Anywhere.
So we're going to look at the interactive forms in Automation Anywhere's 2019 release. Is that what we're seeing today?
That's what we're going to see today. And I'm going to share my screen again, I think.
Sounds good. Why don't you go ahead and get started and tell us why interactive forms are important?
Because they're awesome. Right, so let's skip through this slide. So interactive forms. Interactive forms were introduced in the latest release of Automation Anywhere A 2019. And what they really give you is the ability to kind of bring a human into the loop and a far more rich user interface. So it kind of introduces that concept of having a digital assistant. So where you might have had to navigate through multiple websites or multiple applications manually, what you can do with an interactive form is gather that information up front and then post it into your websites or applications and then retrieve that data back and then present it to the user in a much more kind of functional way. As I kind of said, it was released in the latest release, so A2019.11. The latest build, something like 3342, which is on here. So rather than kind of go through lots of slides and bore everybody to death with slides, I thought what a best way of kind of presenting this would be to do a bit of a live demo, build it out for the audience a little bit. So what I've chosen to do is create a digital assistant around gathering company information. So what this will do is create an interactive form that allows you to enter the company name and then specify some optional kind of search criteria, whether you want to retrieve the directors or secretaries of that company, whether you want to get their stock price as well. And it will go off to the company's house website in the UK and to the London Stock Exchange and pull that information and collate that information back to the user in this digital assistant. Okay, so being a little bit adventurous here, so hopefully this won't go horribly wrong. I'm just going to come out of here and into my screen. So firstly, this is my Automation Anywhere A2019. Oh, I'm just going to hide that. A2019 control room. And I've navigated to kind of a folder in here. And I'm going to start off by creating my form for my digital assistant. So this is new in this version, so create form. And this is going to be my company search form. I'm just going to add a suffix of demo on here. Oops, and try and not make any typos. Okay, so this will now create my form for me and then launch into the kind of interactive form builder where I can kind of start to build up what I want to capture and what I want to display back to the user. So firstly, I'm just going to change my title because form title is not particularly interesting to anybody. Oops. So it's going to be my company search. And I'm going to get rid of this because we don't need it for this particular form. And initially what I want them to do is specify the company name. So in here, I'm going to give them a text box to fill in with the company name. I'm going to use that to search. And we can put some hint on here, so company name to search. Okay, I'm going to make this required. And as I said before, we're going to give them some optional search criteria. So I'm going to create a checkbox group in here, and this is my optional search criteria. And we're going to say, well, they might want to retrieve the officers of the company, so the appointments, directors, secretary, etc. And they might also want to retrieve the stock price for this company. And then finally, on the input kind of track that we've got here, we want them to be able to either exit this digital assistant or perform the search, right? So they're going to need a couple of buttons here. So this one's going to be our exit button. I'll make this a secondary button, and our search button. So it gives us an opportunity for the user to interact with the form. And then lastly, so we've kind of captured the information that we want our users to search with, but we also want to display back to them the information that we've retrieved from our different websites. So just nice, quick and easy. I'm just going to add a couple of, or three text areas on here. One for the company details, and one for the officers, should we want to retrieve them or not. And finally, one for the stock price details. Okay, so we kind of created our form. That was nice, quick and easy. We can just have a quick look at this. We've got a bit of a scroll in here, so we probably want to make this a little bit bigger. I think when it renders, it won't have that scroll bar in it, but let's have a quick preview. So that's what it's going to look like when it's displayed to the user. I actually don't want it to sit right in the center of the screen, so we can move that across a little bit. Let's go for somewhere over there to the right. Nice. Okay, so that's our form created. We now need to create our taskbot to allow us to actually interact with this form. So again, we're going to go new, and we're going to create a new taskbot. So this is going to be our company search demo. Okay. So now if you're familiar with kind of Automation Anywhere 2019, this will look familiar to you. So this is our sort of task template where we're going to actually build out all of the actions that are going to make up our automation. So the first thing we want to do in here is display our form. So we've got this new set of actions, our interactive forms, a whole set of actions here. The first one we want is to display the form. Okay, and it's asking me to specify the form that we want to display. And in here, we're going to create a new variable, and this is going to be our company search form. And when you create a variable of type form, it asks you to specify the actual form that you want to display in here. So in our folder down here, company search demo is our new form that we've just created. Great. And we want that to sit on top of any of the windows because it's our digital assistant, so it needs to be in the forefront of the screen. So we're going to apply that and save it. I'm just going to run this just to show you what this does. You following this, Krista?
Yes, I am.
So let's run this. So let's just go back into it. So this is going to deploy the automation to my machine, which has got a bot agent on it to be able to run this automation. It's running a little bit slow, but we'll give it a minute or two. It'll deploy it to my machine and then run it as that particular digital assistant. So here it goes, getting deployed. Minimize this now.
So when you say bot agent on your machine, you mean you have to have the license to run bots on your direct machine or on the server that you're running them from, correct?
Yeah, exactly. So what was new in A2019 is all of your development could be done via the web browser, but you still need to have a small piece of software that sits on the machine that you're going to run it on, which is the bot agent. So this is the bot agent now that's just sprung to life. Oh, and you saw the screen come up and then really quickly disappear. So it didn't give me any kind of chance to interact with that. And the reason for that, if we kind of look at the automation, we can see that we've started the automation, we've displayed the UI, the form, and then we've ended, right? So we haven't actually paused in our automation to give the user an opportunity to do some interaction with the form. And the way that we do that is through a trigger loop. So if I just drag this in here under my form, so this loops until the trigger happens and then runs those actions. So essentially what this does is just sits there waiting for an interaction through the form, and it will just keep going around this loop and handling any interactions that happen with this form. So if I drag on this handle to the right of here, I can now tell it, this loop, to do something when an event happens on the form, right? So on the trigger, I'm going to select a form trigger. This is the form. We might have more than one, right? And we're going to say, well, when they hit the exit button, and when they click the exit button, we want to do whatever's inside of this action. So in this instance, when they exit, we want to break outside of this loop. So essentially, when they hit the exit button, we're going to go to the end, right? We also want to handle the other event on there, which is our search. So let's go into our form. Again, this time we're going to select our search button. And when they click that, we want to do something. So just for an example, we're just going to say, right, when they hit search, we're going to search clicked. We're just going to send a message back to the user. So let's save that and run it again. So I'm going to blame the slow deployment on everybody working from home during the coronavirus, right? Because they're taking up all the bandwidth. So usually,
I know you have a lot of experience with Automation Anywhere, but this seems pretty intuitive to a new user. What kind of experience would somebody need, and what kind of resources are out there for somebody who wanted to get started doing this?
So I think from an experience perspective, Automation Anywhere have done a really good job of kind of bringing almost like a citizen developer type paradigm into the products. In this particular version as a whole, you can see that everything kind of works in a flowchart type basis, and it's very much drag and drop, setting up properties. So with some kind of self-study on the Automation Anywhere University and some help from BP3, of course, you can become really proficient with this in a matter of weeks, I would say.
Yeah. So
now we've run our task, our digital assistant, and this time it's not kind of just closed. If I hit my search button, you'll see that it's captured that and displayed my message. Yeah, and it'll go around and it'll keep doing that until I hit the exit button, right? And hit the exit button and we exit out of this. So that's all well and good, but it doesn't really do a lot, right? So now let's start to add a little bit of functionality into our search. So I've already created a couple of task automations to do the kind of grunt work, the launching the Companies House website and the London Stock Exchange. We just need to plumb that into our digital assistant. And those are kind of things that would happen in reality, right? You'd have lots of different reusable artifacts that you could then pull together into an automation like we're doing today. So the first thing I'm going to do is just, so we've got nice tidy diagrams, we're going to put in here a step which is going to be perform search. And then inside of this, we're going to run another task automation. So I've got this taskbot run action, and that allows me to select from my list of tasks that I've already got created. So if we just drill in back into here again and into my examples, we've got this company search folder, and inside of that, search Companies House. So when that loads up now, it's going to show me that it requires a number of parameters to be passed to it for it to perform that search. So obviously it's going to need the name of the company you want to search for, but it also, you can pass in this extract appointments value. appointments, think directors or officers, right? It's all the same thing. So this information that we're going to pass to it is actually going to come from our form. So before we can do that, we need to get that information out of the form. So I'm just going to apply that and come back into here. I'm going to add a new step, which is going to be for us to get search criteria. Okay. And in here, if we go back to our interactive form actions, we've got this get action. Now this allows me, again, to specify the form, but then grab the inputs from our form now. So I'm going to get the company name that somebody's input, and I'm going to populate that into a variable inside of this automation. I'm going to create a new one for this, and I'm going to call this just search criteria. Okay, so that's going to get whatever's been keyed into there and pull it into my search criteria variable. And while we're here, we might as well do the other two as well. So our officers, whether we want to search for officers or for the stock price. So I'm just going to copy and paste this a couple of times. And this one's going to be our officers. And again, we're going to create a new variable. I'm going to call this search officers. And that's a type Boolean because it's a true or false, yes or no. And let's just apply that. And then the final one is going to be whether we want to search the London Stock Exchange for the stock price. And again, create a new variable, and this is going to be search stock price. Okay, we're getting there. So back into our perform search step, onto our taskbar, and now we can start to populate this with our variables. So here's our search criteria. And do we want to extract the appointments? We're going to use a variable for that. And that's going to be our search for officers. Great. Okay, last thing we need to do here is, obviously that's going to go off and it's going to search the Companies House website, pull back the data, but we want to get that data out of that website and populate it back to our user in our digital assistant, in our form. So in here, we need to grab that data that's been returned into a result variable, and that's a dictionary type. Okay, so that's going to return it to here, but we still need to populate that back onto the form. So it's been retrieved back to our automation, but we need to set that back on the form. And the way that we do that, again, as we did before with a get, we need to do a set. So let's just drag this into here, specify our form, and we want to populate the company details with what's been returned, which is in our result, and it's called company details, helpfully. And we also want to populate it with our officers as well, so let's just cut and paste that. So this is going to be our officers. And again, it's coming from results, and this is going to be officer details. Okay, right. So let's apply and save that. So at the moment, we're getting the data from the form, from what the user's keyed in. We perform the search, and then we populate it back to the form again. So it should all be good.
Let's see if it works.
Let's see.
So Dan, with reusable tasks, someone like you would go create these reusable tasks, and then someone like me could go and create these bots for my own use.
Yeah, exactly that. So it might be that you've got some tasks that do, yeah. Take a step back a little bit. I think when people think of RPA, they naturally think of doing interactions or integrations through the UI. That isn't always the case. It might be that we're going to the database or to a web service or through the UI. So there might be things in there that are a little bit more complicated that you need some more experienced users to create. And that's what we try and do. So we'll create reusable components that are exposed to our kind of our workforce, if you like, that can then reuse those in automations of their own. So yes.
So developers go and enable super users to do more with their job. For example, if I was a, business development rep, looking up this kind of information about a company could take me 1 minute, as we'll see in just a second, or it could take me an hour to do.
Yeah, exactly. If you were doing that manually, you'd be kind of navigating to lots of different websites and cutting and pasting from different sources. So doing it this way would really reduce the time and effort that it would take. So, okay, so we've got our digital assistant now. So let's go with a company we all know and love. Let's try BP3, for instance. And we're going to retrieve the officers and hit search. So this time, rather than a message box appear, it's launching the Companies House website. It's doing a search for BP3. Here we go. It's found it. Selects the record, and then it's going to start to gather all that information from this particular page. Once it's done that, it's then going to go onto the people page and then get all of the kind of relevant officers or the directors and the company secretary, if necessary, from that page as well. And there you go. It's populated that back into our digital assistant for us to kind of do what we want with, right? Okay, so let's just finish off and implement our last little bit of functionality. So we also want to go to the London Stock Exchange website. So let's create a new step in here. And this is going to be perform stock price search. And again, let's just apply that. We're going to go to our tasks, and here's one I did earlier. So I'm going to run this particular task, and this is going to be, again, in my examples, but I've got in here a stock price lookup. And as you'd expect, this is going to want a search criteria passed to it, which we've already retrieved, right? So that's our search criteria. And as we did before with the company search, we need to retrieve the data that's been returned. So I'm going to populate our results again, and we're going to set our, oops, let's do it this way, interactive. We're going to set our final text box on our form, which is our stock price details. It's coming from the results, and this is stock details. Apply that, give it a save, and we should be good to go. Okay.
So Dan, where have you seen people using digital assistants? Is it mainly in shared service centers?
Yeah, that's the big kind of use case for that. So agents that are on the phone to people where they would typically have to, again, search multiple different systems. Digital assistants can really reduce the time that it takes them to do that. Yeah, this is very much obviously a attended kind of use case. A lot of what we're seeing in the automation space at the moment are unattended use cases where you're processing lots of transactions, sort of high volume type things. This is more about reducing the time that it takes the user to perform their job, essentially, rather than the high transactional work.
Can you briefly touch on the difference between attended and unattended bots?
Yeah, so attended bots will work on your desktop. So like we've got here, so it's either going to be something that I launch automatically or get launched from me having some interaction with an application. Well, that wasn't good. And unattended bots generally be kind of working in a data center. So, an example of that might be invoice matching. So you've got maybe hundreds and thousands of invoices coming into to a company, and they want to be matched with the purchase orders, for instance. And that can pretty much be done automatically, using the invoice number, purchase order number. So those kind of things would happen in the data center in the background. So this is kind of fired up now. So what I can do here is, it disappeared. I did think that I lost its connection then. So let's just run that one more time.
Just proving that it is a live demo.
Yeah, this isn't just kind of me.
And although everyone at BP3 thinks that Dan is not in fact perfect, is what we just learned.
Well, I'm not sure it was me. I think it was my installation, but hey ho. No, far from perfect, unfortunately. Here we go. So it's done it this time. I told you it's all that bandwidth being used. So let's choose a different company this time. So I'm going to go for Aston Martin Lagonda. So company that everybody should be familiar with, I'd imagine. We'll get the officers and we'll get the stock price. Okay, so again, it's launched our company's house. There's our search. I don't think there's many directors of this company, so it shouldn't take too long. So it's grabbing the data again from company's house, navigating to the officers. It's 4 of them, there we go. Pulling back the officers. Great. So it's now launched our London Stock Exchange website, and it will do a search for Aston Martin. Great. And it's pulling back our stock price. So there we go. All done. So here's our information about Aston Martin. Here's our directors, and here's their current stock price, and they're down £3.95, unfortunately. Sign of the times, unfortunately. So, so that's kind of a very quick overview of what you can do with forms and how you can kind of create a digital assistant. Before kind of sign off, I just want to, if you spend a little bit of time and effort on this, you can actually create something pretty cool, I think. So before doing this, I just created a bit of a complete example. Rather than using text areas to output the data, I've kind of split it all up into individual elements on the UI. So hopefully this is a little bit, so it's not too slow. There we go. Here we go. So yeah, so just by spending a bit of time and effort building out your kind of forms, and a bit of time and effort on building out your automation so that you're kind of bringing back the data in a usable format, you can produce some digital assistants that are really quite rich in their functionality. In this example that you're going to see in a second, I've put some validation in there to make sure that they're entering the right information. I'm disabling the fields that you shouldn't be entering into and re-enabling them so you can cut and paste from them. So you can perform some kind of really rich functionality with the forms. It says,
I guess to make the user experience a little bit better.
Exactly. Although this is kind of making the user's job easier, you still want it to be a nice experience for them, right? You're enhancing what they're doing, but still it needs to be, here we go. So let's just go with another company. Let's try Cineworld. We'll do the same again. So this time you can see that I've kind of disabled all of the output fields at this point. I've moved these to be side by side, for instance, and just made it look a little bit nicer, really. So here we go. And then when this finishes, what it does is it enables these fields again, so that, because I think a lot of what you're going to do with these kind of digital assistants is take this data and cut and paste it elsewhere or use it elsewhere. So in this particular instance, it will re-enable the fields as it finishes. So you can see here it's populated the ones that are for the company. It's finally getting the stock price, and there you go. So it's done. So here we go.
Layout.
Say that again.
Much better layout there.
It's much better. It's much more pleasing on the eye. So there you go. That hopefully gives you a bit of an example.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Dan, for walking us through interactive forms and Automation Anywhere's A2019. I learned a lot, and I learned a lot about reusable tasks and how we can display things. And I think these forms are really cool.
Excellent.
So this week we are only doing this Tuesday broadcast. We will skip our Thursday broadcast because this one was a little bit long. But we'll be back next Tuesday and Thursday at 10 a.m. Central Time or 1600 GMT for more BP3 Lives. So thanks, Dan.
No worries. Thanks, Krista. Bye.